Okay, let me start with my outline, which I will not go through very quickly because of time. So let me just give you a brief background. There has been a virtual global lockdown since March due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Uh, and most of the data collection actually were partially or fully stopped in most uh, data collection agencies of most governments all over the world. And face-to-face interviews were resumed probably about second half of the 2020. Um, and actually, the pandemic underscores the importance of quick turnaround of data and analysis for policy response. So in terms of migration, what do we need? Actually, there are many things that we want when we try to study migration. We want to answer questions of what type of movement was there? Is it force? Is it immigration? Is it asylum seeking? Why are people moving? What's the reason for the move? Who are they? What's the age, the sex, socioeconomic status, education, employment? When did they move? Can we classify them as period, lifetime, trend, or patterns are also important. And how did they move? What type of mode of transportation did they use? Were they trafficked or smuggled? Were they accompanied by others? And where did they go to specifically? And how many are they? So it's very important to know all of this when we try to do research on migration. So let me just give you a listing, partial listing of the different types of migration that most of you are already familiar with. So I'm not going to go through this. Most of you know this already. So let's go to sources of migration data. For the Philippines, census is the main source of data on migration. And questions on migration are in the census every 10 years, which end in the year ending in 0. So this year, we might be able to see what the output is in terms of the migration question included in the census of 2020. We also get data on migration from surveys like NDHS, National Demographic and Health Surveys, National Migration Survey, Survey of Overseas Filipinos, and so on and so forth. There are also sub-national surveys that are being conducted on selected areas of the country and selected people, special migrant groups as well. So we also get data from ethnographic studies. And population register, we do not have population register, excuse me. But this is available for most countries, in developed countries, particularly in Europe. We have data on from administrative sources like BI, CFO, POEA, OWA, which we already mentioned earlier, and by other resource persons in the earlier panel. But I just wanted to underscore also baptismal records from church archives are also available. These are administrative data. And PAPCOM also started in some provinces, the registry of barangay inhabitants and migrants, which I think helped a lot during the COVID situation. And because barangays know who the migrants are in their particular area. And then we also know about border statistics that are being generated from manifests at airport and seaport. But during the pandemic, most of the research in migration actually used big data. And I think this is where we are moving post-pandemic. What are the big data? These are social media like Facebook, Instagram, and so on. And banks, data from the banks are also part of big data, cell phone, particularly, which actually tracks where the person is, at what time were the messages sent, from where to where, and so on and so forth. So all of these are huge data that can actually be used and have been used during the pandemic. Okay, but let me go back to our conventional sources of data. So this was already mentioned in the 2018 National Migration Survey, and also in the 2020 census. We will have data on that. And this is sort of advocating for the use of the NMS for secondary data for members of the PMRN. We have two questionnaires for NMS, the household and the individual record. So I have listed here some of the sections. I'll be sharing this slide later on, so you can go through this later. So these are the information collected from the National Migration Survey for the individual as well as for the household schedule. Okay, let me go through this slide again. Actually, at the UN Statistical Commission, they are undergoing discussions, revisiting conceptual frameworks on concepts and definitions of international migration. And this is from 1 to 3 of March and 5 of March, which is within this week, actually. So actually, I listed here a few of the frameworks that are being considered. So you may want to look at this when you get the handouts, and you can search it as well.
Excuse
on
me,
the internet.
your slides are not moving. We're just on the title slide.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
I am already on my 12th, halfway.
So we were wondering. Okay.
So how about this one?
Yeah, now we see that now. It's it's the
Okay.
background.
Okay.
Maybe you can just
I'll just go through this, since I already discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, types of migrants, sources of migration data, which was already discussed earlier. And then this is the National Migration Survey and the census. And then these are the two questionnaires that are used in the National Migration Survey. What do they have? What are the contents of the household schedule, the individual questionnaire as well. Okay, so this is what I'm discussing now. There is a discussion at the UN Statistical Commission on reconceptualizing the frameworks and concepts, definitions regarding international migration to make it easier for everyone to follow. Because based on the 1998 recommendations on how to measure migration, international migration, many countries have not really adhered to that. And it's very difficult to compare across countries. So I think that's where they started, and there have been series of meetings trying to look at it now. And these are the different frameworks that are included in the document. The link is here. You can check it later. So conceptual framework on international mobility. Why international mobility? Because somehow it is like discussing the framework for overseas Filipinos and international migrants for us Filipinos, okay? So which is more overarching, international mobility or international migration. So this is one of the conceptual frameworks that being discussed now. And so this is the framework that they are proposing. So on international mobility. So it is a bigger, more overarching concept than international migration. And this is the conceptual framework on intersection between duration of stay and international mobility. I'm not gonna discuss this. You can just read through the documents later. And then the framework for international migration and coherence between flows and stocks, which is very important in terms of measurement, because countries have very different ways of measuring flows and stocks. So for us also Philippines, we are still in the process of finalizing how to measure it more accurately. This is going to help a lot once this is approved, okay? Also, a framework on the relationship between international temporary population mobility flows and the present non-resident population at different times. Okay, let me just go through what the methods are, because that's what I wanted to examine now. For methods, these are specific techniques used to collect and to analyze information or data, so which is different from methodology. Okay, so migration data collection tools used so far are interviews, focus group discussions, group qualitative interviews, participant and non-participant observations, mixed methods, and administrative forms. These are the main tools used for getting data on migration. So face-to-face interview actually faced a big problem or difficulty during the COVID-19 pandemic. So most of the governments actually use telephone instead of face-to-face. But most of the result based on the Asian study conducted was that the reliability is not so good, maybe because of coverage issue. Not everyone may have a telephone, and some may not answer the call. And computer-assisted interviews were also tried, as in the census of 2020, as discussed earlier by Dr. Barsales. We used CAWI, was used and pre-tested. But in some surveys, we already started using CAPI and CATI. This is computer-assisted personal interview, computer-assisted telephone interview, and computer-assisted web interview. Okay, so this is, I think, where we are going post-pandemic era, okay, in terms of data collection tools. Even focus group discussions are now conducted online, right? So using webinars and Zoom and Google Meet and other methods of communicating with members of the group. Okay, so what are the methods in terms of migration studies? There's a number of methods. We analyze particularly migration indicators. That's one of the first thing that we look at when we say, what's the migration data that we have? So these are the indicators we look at: net migration rates, number of migrants, where are they going to, where are they going from, where are they leaving from, and so on and so forth. So what are the different things that are being used? We use surveys, ethnography, expert group interviews, archival methods, context analysis, experiments, scenario analysis. And for those who have registered data, then they can analyze registered data. In the use of mobile phones during the pandemic, some of the researchers actually used the mobile phone data, which can track where the person is moving, because persons usually send text messages. And actually the receivers of the companies have geolocations of the cell phones, which I will be discussing later on. Okay, so these have been used and have been accessed by some migration researchers, and they found where, especially if they have data on age and sex and so on, then you can look at population vulnerabilities of different countries, which have, if they have access to all this data. Okay, so Facebook is also used in some researches, and it is also available. You can check it out, the data for good of FB, Facebook Messenger. They have geolocations of information for those who use mobile devices. And this has been analyzed for Spain. Okay, so they have pilot studies using Facebook information. What we know before this is that Facebook has been used for marketing, right? Because most of the ads that we see when we open the Facebook, there are many ads, and they target population with specific age, sex, marital status, and so on, education, to be able to target their market. But then during the COVID pandemic, this has also been used to be able to trace where people are moving to and from. So let me go through the technical and ethical issues. Actually, during the pandemic, the response rate and reliability of data collected is actually not sure. We're not sure really on this. So telephone interviews, basically, we know have less coverage than face-to-face interviews. So it is very important actually to assess when we start doing analysis of data collected during quarantine to assess first this data on response and reliability, okay? And standard is as well as coverage. You should add coverage here as well. And then standardization of migration concepts, including that of mobility, because during the pandemic, actually it is mobility more than migration concepts that have been utilized, okay? Because we have very strict definition for migration, and it is not as useful as data on mobility. That is why most of the information used during the pandemic were mobile data and big data from mobile and Facebook, social media, because that is indicating where people are going from what location to another location. And then another is the operationalization of established frameworks. We already have frameworks, established frameworks, and yet they seem to be not operational yet. Some operationalized, but still have to be made sure to adhere to agreed upon concepts and definitions, okay? And then the issue of privacy, particularly when you link different data sources, like for example, bank data. If you want to link bank data for remittances of OFWs, what would happen? Would data on the person be visible when you start analyzing it? So the issues like this, I think, have to be clarified before establishing huge or big databases. And although it may said we're not merging, we're just linking, still the issue of privacy, especially for people regarding money, may be quite dangerous. Okay, so because we only see usefulness for migration researchers, we are concerned with regard to establishing how many people move to Middle East, where are they now? So if we have, for example, if the PhilSys ID system is already operational, then we can already merge or link POEA data with, for example, OWA and DFA data. Okay, there were attempts actually under the SGSIM to do this way back, maybe 10 years ago, but then it failed. Why? Because even though we have all the technical tools with us, or with the computer tools, etc., technological knowledge that we have in terms of merging, there were very many variables that have to be matched to be able to get the perfect identification of one person. So you cannot just use first name, second name, age, and sex, because first name, second name, there are many people with the same name and same surname. Birthplace, there's also many people would have common name, surname, and birthplace. How about sex? Also, 4 variables already to be merged, to be matched, and yet you still cannot match the perfect way of identifying the person for one particular record, right? So I think with the PhilCs in full operation post-pandemic, there may be a great possibility of having the SGSIN to be operationalized. And yet at this point in time, it's still very difficult because of the data privacy issue. Okay. So I just wanted to list a few what to expect in the post-pandemic era. This may be methods, this may be methodological. So I will just go through this. For brevity, I want to just read through it. The analysis of mobility data, particularly in the study of its intersectionality with health and or disease transmission as basis for policy response, which is for COVID-19, which is what we need now. Standardization of migration measurement, events and movements for comparability nationally and internationally. This is where I see things are moving. Maybe slow, but it's moving. Okay. Further analysis of the 2018 National Migration Survey. I hope most of the PMRN members would be able to access the public use file. It's already available from PSA. And hopefully the National Migration Survey will be conducted again, because as mentioned by Dr. Bersales, the 2018 NMS is baseline. Okay, so it would be good if we can see a trend if we have a second collection of the NMS. So either 2023 or 2025, and I hope PMRN can help advocate for the designation of NMS as a regular survey that will be conducted. And then inclusion of the migration question in the mid-decade census. This is a very perennial, not perennial, but obvious gap in data. Because in census, every 10 years, we have questions on migration. And most of the time we ask, where were you residing 5 years ago? Okay, so at the beginning of the decade, we don't have data. There was an attempt in 2000 to include a question on your residence 10 years ago, but I think the data on that particular question was not so good. That is why it was taken out when the 2010 census was conducted. So I think there is really a need for inclusion of migration question during the mid-decade census. It's only a few questions actually, and we will be able to fill the gap which has been there for many decades. Okay, we only know the 5 years before the census, the residents 5 years before the census. So if it is included in the mid-decade, then we will complete the information for the whole decade on migration patterns and trends. Okay, so full implementation of the PhilCs to be able to link sources of migration data with other databases, which will lead to the operationalization of the SGSIN, which was in the law already. Okay, and as mentioned by Dr. Bersales, we need to be cautious in doing this, as there are many data privacy issues that come with this. What else? I think we need to use as well life course paradigm in explaining movements, because it should be age graded, it should be there should be some human agency, linked lives, historical, geographic context, timing of events, examined within the paradigm. That is very important in the study of migration. And the use of model age patterns of migration for filling missing data, because most of the time we cannot bring down the migration data to municipal or to provincial, even provincial. It's very difficult because the accounting matrix for where they were 5 years ago and where they are residing at the time of the census have many zero cells, zero frequency cells. So in terms of missing data, in those cells, we can use age patterns of migration. I think there will be more research that will be done on the use of age patterns of migration. And then expansion of methods to include longitudinal data. There are already attempts to do this. I am actually involved in one of the research being conducted by CIFAL, doing longitudinal data study on overseas Filipinos and using social media, and they will try to target and get back to the respondent every several months to be able to have comparison and track what is happening to the migrant. Okay, so things like this will probably be because Facebook is very accessible and everyone can use. So I think this will be moving forward more quickly post-pandemic. And then application of innovative approaches in migration management. There are some who have been using drone with videos that can really track who are movements of people. I think they have done this in some countries already, like the border between Mexico and things like this. So, and greater use of mixed methods, looking at determinants, consequences, migration decision-making, impact on migrants and future prospects, which are mixed methods have been used have been used in many surveys already. And yet, I think this will be things that we will be seeing more post-pandemic. I think that's where I leave for now. Thank you. Thank you for your time.